So Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, I mean, the guy possessed one of the absolute most brilliant analytical minds of the late 19th and early 20th century.
Right, the creator of Sherlock Holmes.
Exactly. The literary embodiment of pure logic, deduction, evidence-based reasoning, all that.
The guy literally wrote the book on hyper-rational thinking.
He did. But in 1920, this exact same brilliant author wrote this highly publicized, like deeply passionate defense of the Cottingley fairies.
Oh man, this story is just wild.
It really is. And if you are familiar with this, these were photographs taken by two young girls in England that, well, they supposedly proved the existence of actual fairies.
Real fairies at the bottom of the garden.
Yeah. And the photos, I mean, they were literally just paper cutouts of fairies copied from a popular children's book. They were held up by hat pins.
Like, you can actually see the pins in some of the original shots if you look close enough.
Right. It was just an incredibly obvious hoax. But Conan Doyle, who was a medical doctor and, a literal genius, he didn't just believe it. He basically staked his entire reputation on it.
Which just completely breaks our standard understanding of how intelligence works.
Exactly. And that is why we're so glad you're joining us for this deep dive today, because we are exploring a stack of just fascinating source material that sits right at this weird intersection of philosophy, human history, and neuroscience.
It really covers a lot of ground.
It does. And the core mission for us today is to figure out why raw brain power like Conan Doyle's, why that just isn't enough to protect us from absolute nonsense.
And ideally, to uncover what actually does protect our minds from error.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this, because we really need to start by shattering this deeply ingrained illusion that I think we literally all have about intelligence.
Oh, absolutely. It is a very stubborn illusion to break, largely because, well, we just naturally equate being smart with being fundamentally correct.
No, like they're the same thing.
Exactly. We assume that high-level intelligence acts as this, protective shield against bad ideas. But the sources we're looking at today, they lay this out with striking clarity. I mean, history is absolutely littered with examples of the world's most intellectually gifted individuals believing ideas that were, unequivocally, demonstrably false.
That's the paradox, right? Like, we look at someone with advanced degrees, someone who can maybe perform delicate heart surgery, or engineer rockets for space travel, or solve some complex mathematical theorem.
Yeah, the real heavy hitters of intellect.
Right. And we assume their mind is just this impenetrable fortress against falsehoods.
We do. But education and raw processing power, they do not immunize the mind. Like, you can have a Nobel laureate. Linus Pauling is a great example from the sources.
Oh, right. The vitamin C guy?
Exactly. He was a brilliant chemist, but later in life he championed this entirely unscientific belief that massive doses of vitamin C could cure just about everything, from the common cold to cancer.
Even though all the clinical evidence said otherwise.
Right. He had the exact same brilliant brain, but he held tight to a belief with zero empirical backing. Which, brings us to the most crucial distinction the source material emphasizes. Knowledge is simply not the same thing as wisdom.
I was actually trying to picture how this works in practice while I was reading through the material, and I kept coming back to a car analogy.
Okay, let's hear it.
So tell me if this tracks with the research. Imagine raw intelligence is like a massive, super powerful V8 engine.
A lot of horsepower.
Exactly. It can process data incredibly fast, memorize vast amounts of facts, calculate complex outcomes. That's the engine. But critical thinking, that active, objective pursuit of the truth, that is the steering wheel.
I like that. That's a highly effective way to visualize it, because what actually happens if you put a massive engine in a car with a broken steering wheel?
Well, you don't navigate the road better. You just crash into a wall of falsehoods much faster than a regular person driving, like, a golf cart.
Precisely. You just get to the wrong destination faster. But the source material takes your analogy one step further, and this is where it gets a bit darker.
Okay, how so?
The engine itself, right, the raw intelligence, it doesn't just passively drive you into a wall. It is actively weaponized to rationalize the crash.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. A highly intelligent person is vastly better at constructing complex, sophisticated arguments to defend their false beliefs. They use that massive vocabulary and all those analytical skills to build a beautifully engineered fortress around a terrible idea.
Because they just have the mental bandwidth to invent these complicated excuses that, I mean, an average person wouldn't even think of.
Exactly. And to understand the why behind this behavior, we have to recognize a fundamental, often really uncomfortable truth about human nature that's outlined in the sources.
Which is what?
Humans rarely believe ideas simply because those ideas are objectively true.
Which, I mean, that sounds completely counterintuitive. We really like to think of ourselves as rational creatures, weighing the facts.
Yeah. We do, yeah. But the reality is we believe ideas because those ideas provide us with a sense of safety. They give us our core identity.
Right.
They offer belonging within a community. And crucially, they reduce the crushing weight of uncertainty in a really chaotic world. The sources draw a very stark contrast between two archetypes that I think perfectly illustrates this dynamic.
Right. The two types of people in an argument.
Yes.
So you have person A, who follows the evidence wherever it leads, even if it forces them to basically admit they were wrong.
It is hard to do.
Super hard. And then you have person B, who follows whatever logic protects their pre-existing beliefs.
Now, if you put them in a room together and watch them debate, who usually appears more confident?
Oh, almost always person B.
Every time.
The one aggressively protecting their beliefs. They don't have the burden of doubt, so they just seem incredibly self-assured. But the big takeaway here for you listening right now is that confidence is absolutely not evidence.
That is so important.
Right. Confidence is an emotional state. It is not a metric of reality.
And that emotional state is the perfect bridge into the biology of what is actually happening inside our heads.
Let's get into the biology.
Because if intelligence, our powerful V8 engine isn't protecting us, what is actually running the show? The answer lies in the default mode of the human brain. The brain's primary overarching directive is to protect the self.
Okay.
It is not designed to seek the truth.
Okay, wait. I really need to push back on this for a second.
Go for it.
Because I want to make sure I'm fully grasping the biology here. That sounds like a massive claim.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying that if I sit down with someone and I show them a spreadsheet or a peer-reviewed study or a rock-solid piece of data that proves their deeply held belief is completely wrong,
Yeah.
that their brain literally interprets that data the exact same way it would interpret a physical threat?
Yes.
Like, it literally can't tell the difference between a piece of paper and a lion jumping out of the bushes.
What's fascinating here is that neurologically speaking, yes.
That is insane.
When you present contrary data to a deeply held belief, the brain doesn't route that information solely to the prefrontal cortex, which is, the logical, analytical part of the brain.
Where you'd expect it to go.
Exactly. Instead, it triggers the amygdala.
The fight or flight center.
Exactly. The exact same primitive region of the brain that flares up into a high alert state in response to a bodily threat. Cortisol floods the system. Your heart rate elevates. Cognitive focus narrows.
Wow.
To the nervous system, the destruction of a cherished belief literally equates to the destruction of the self.
But wait, if the amygdala treats contrary data like a bear attack, how do you explain scientists?
That's a good point.
Or like investigative journalists? They literally make a living proving each other wrong. I mean, scientific conferences are basically just people throwing contradictory spreadsheets at each other all day.
Pretty much, yeah.
So
Yeah.
why doesn't their fight or flight kick in? Why doesn't science just devolve into massive physical brawls?
That is the perfect question because it really highlights the exact mechanism of the trap. The amygdala doesn't fire at all contradictory data.
Oh, it doesn't.
No. If I tell you that you miscalculated the tip on a restaurant bill, your amygdala doesn't care. It doesn't freak out.
Right. It'd be like, oh, oops.
Exactly. It fires specifically when the belief being challenged is deeply tied to a person's identity.
Ah, so it's about what the belief represents to who they are.
Precisely. Scientists are rigorously trained to decouple their personal identity from their hypothesis. A good scientist says, my theory might be wrong, not, if my theory is wrong, I am a fundamentally worthless person.
That is a huge distinction.
It is. But for most people outside of a laboratory setting, their political opinions or their worldviews, their social ideologies, those are the very foundation of their identity.
So people end up defending their politics or their worldview the exact same way they would violently defend their own family from an attacker.
Yeah.
Because they literally see the spreadsheet as a weapon aimed at their ego.
Exactly. They aren't defending the belief because they have meticulously verified it to be empirically true. They are defending it because to lose the belief feels like a kind of death.
That's heavy.
The truth becomes entirely irrelevant to a nervous system that genuinely thinks it's fighting for its life.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because this whole narrative, it naturally forces us to step back and look at the evolutionary timeline.
Oh, yeah.
Because why on earth would human biology evolve this massive, seemingly completely irrational flaw? I mean, if perceiving reality accurately is usually a good thing for survival, why would we be wired to ignore facts just to protect our feelings?
To understand that, we have to look backwards, like tens of thousands of years backwards.
Okay, take us back.
For the vast majority of human history, an individual survival depended entirely on the tribe. A lone human out in the wild was highly vulnerable to predators, starvation, the elements.
Right, if you were alone, you were pretty much dead.
You were done for. So you absolutely needed the group to share resources, to hunt, to maintain the fire at night.
Right.
Right?
Therefore, accepting the shared beliefs of your tribe dramatically increased your chances of remaining safely within that group.
It was the ultimate social glue.
Yes, if the tribe believed that the thunder was a giant bird in the sky, you didn't ask for empirical evidence, you agreed.
You just nodded along.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because questioning the tribe's core beliefs didn't just mean you got into a heated debate by the fire. It meant you were viewed as a subversive threat to group cohesion.
And the punishment for that was exile.
And exile meant death. So evolution aggressively selected for humans who prioritize belonging over accuracy.
Wow.
And that ancient, literally life or death instinct is still completely governing our subconscious today.
Which perfectly explains why it is so painfully, almost comically difficult to change someone's mind in an everyday argument.
Oh, totally.
Like when you argue with someone across the Thanksgiving dinner table or in the comments section on social media, you think you're having a rational debate about tax policy or healthcare data.
That you aren't. No. Their brain is fighting an ancient battle for survival. They aren't rejecting your logic. Their amygdala is terrified of being exiled from their ideological tribe.
That is the exact dynamic playing out under the surface. The conscious mind, that V8 engine might loudly claim to value logic.
Sure.
But the deeper, much older neurological wiring strictly values safety and social inclusion. However, the source material does offer a critical ray of hope here.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, it anchors this hope in the blank slate theory of belief.
Wait, are we really blank slates, though? Don't we have genetic predispositions for things?
Well, we absolutely have genetic predispositions for temperament, whether we are naturally anxious or outgoing or risk-averse.
Right.
But we do not have genetic predispositions for specific ideological beliefs.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Right. No human child is born with a stance on agricultural tariffs or a rigid worldview about flat Earth.
That would be a very weird baby.
Very weird. Those specific beliefs are entirely learned software programs.
And the beautiful thing about learned behavior is that it can be unlearned.
It can, but, and this is a really crucial caveat, the sources stress, it can only be unlearned if the environment actively rewards truth-seeking over certainty-seeking.
Which transitions us right into the solution.
Yes.
We've diagnosed the biological and the evolutionary trap, so how do we escape it? How do we hack our own hardwiring?
That's the million-dollar question.
The source material introduces this incredibly powerful concept that they call the greatest prison on Earth. And it's not a physical place. Like, it's not Alcatraz.
Right.
It is made entirely of certainty.
Because certainty is the ultimate cognitive trap. Think about what happens neurologically when a person utters the phrase, "I already know the truth."
A profound psychological shutdown occurs.
Literally. The brain's learning centers, the dopamine reward loops that actually incentivize curiosity and exploration, they just shut down.
Wow.
The brain is an incredibly energy-hungry organ. Learning new things consumes a lot of calories. So certainty is actually a way to conserve energy.
Oh, that makes sense biologically.
The moment you decide you possess absolute certainty, the search for novel information stops dead in its tracks. You have locked yourself in the cell and thrown away the key.
And this is exactly where the contrast with the scientific mindlet becomes so illuminating. Science, as a systematic method of inquiry, is essentially the anti-prison.
Exactly.
It succeeds precisely because it actually expects to be wrong. It's built on the fundamental premise of its own fallibility.
Science does not demand that you blindly trust it.
No.
Every single theory, no matter how universally accepted it is, must survive constant, rigorous testing against reality.
And the most beautiful part of that system is that the very moment better, more accurate evidence appears, science changes. It updates the map.
Right.
It doesn't view contrary data as a lion attacking its identity. It views it as a necessary correction.
Because the institution of science values objective truth far more than it values personal pride.
I really want you, listening right now, to reflect on that for a second. Imagine what your own life, your relationships, your career, what that would look like if you deliberately chose to treat your own personal beliefs the exact same way a scientist treats a theory.
That changes everything.
It does. What if you trained your amygdala to view being proven wrong not as some humiliating, ego-crushing defeat, but as an exciting upgrade to your personal software?
I love that.
Like a patch that fixes a major bug in your operating system. Disagreements wouldn't be battles to the death anymore. They'd become shared investigations. Being wrong would literally be a marker of progress.
That shift in framing, from defending a fragile ego to actively seeking a software upgrade, that is profound for an individual. But when we take this concept of certainty versus the scientific mindset and we expand it out to a macro level, we really begin to see how this dynamic shapes entire human civilizations.
Right. Because we aren't just talking about individuals arguing over dinner anymore. We are talking about massive historical systems of belief.
Huge systems. And the sources take a very measured, very impartial look at these large-scale belief systems, including religious traditions.
Yeah.
Many traditions naturally demand a high degree of certainty. Faith is often explicitly defined as the act of holding a belief in the absence of empirical evidence.
And to be completely objective here, because we really want to just look at what the text is saying, the source material explicitly acknowledges that for millions and millions of people globally, this certainty provides a profound, genuine sense of comfort.
Absolutely.
It provides deep meaning to human existence, and it fosters incredibly strong, supportive communities. The tribal cohesion we talked about earlier, it has massive benefits for human well-being.
Right. The analysis here isn't inherently condemning belief itself.
No, not at all.
The danger arises at a very specific inflection point. It happens when certainty becomes more important than the truth.
Yeah, okay.
It happens when the very act of questioning becomes structurally forbidden by the group and when honest doubt is weaponized and treated as treason.
That's the real threat. It's not what the group believes, it's how the group reacts to a question about what they believe.
Yes.
The sources offer these core analytical questions that we should arguably apply to literally any belief system, whether it's political, social, philosophical, whatever. You have to ask, does this system of belief help humanity flourish? Or is it being used to justify the suffering of others?
Right.
Does it open the human mind to new, evolving possibilities? Or does it demand that the mind be tightly closed?
History shows us time and time again that civilizations do not collapse simply because their citizens ask too many questions.
No.
A questioning society is an adaptable, resilient society. Civilizations collapse when questioning is outlawed.
Because objective truth, by its very nature, has absolutely nothing to fear from questions. It can easily withstand the scrutiny. Only falsehood requires the protection of mandated silence. So what does this all mean? When we distill all of this down, the history of brilliant people believing nonsense, the amygdala hijacking our logic, the evolutionary need for tribal approval, the macro systems that enforce certainty, it completely redefines what a strong mind actually is.
It really does.
We usually picture a strong mind as a brick wall, right? Unyielding, stubborn, never backing down from an argument.
The loudest voice in the room.
Exactly. But based on everything we've unpacked, that's actually a sign of massive intellectual fragility.
Completely.
The truly strongest minds aren't the ones that stubbornly refuse to change. The strongest minds are the ones courageous enough and flexible enough to adapt when reality demands it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it paints a very clear trajectory for our species. The greatest, most transformative step forward for human civilization won't necessarily be a technological breakthrough.
Oh,
No. It will be the day humanity finally matures enough to value evidence more than it values ego.
that is a powerful paradigm shift. And it brings us right back to you listening to this right now. We've talked a lot about history, neuroscience, society, but let's make this deeply personal before we go.
Let's do it.
The source material asks a challenging question, and I want to pose it directly to you. When was the last time you genuinely changed your mind about a deeply held belief because you were presented with new evidence?
It's a tough question to answer.
Really think about it. When did you last look at a piece of data and say, wow, I was totally wrong about this? If you're searching your memory right now and the honest answer is never, or you just can't remember the last time it happened, you might want to consider that you aren't actually protecting the truth. You might just be fiercely protecting your own identity.
And to build on the biological and evolutionary concepts we discussed today, I actually want to leave you with one final, completely new layer to mull over.
Okay, what is it?
So, we established that our ancient brains are hardwired by evolution to prioritize tribal belonging over objective truth, right?
Right.
Now, consider the rapid development of artificial intelligence.
Oh boy.
We are currently training incredibly powerful AI models, potentially artificial general intelligence, using massive data sets of human text, human arguments, and human history.
Yeah.
If these machines are learning how to quote unquote think by studying us, is there a risk that we are accidentally coding our ancient amygdala-driven tribal biases into superintelligence? Are we basically building a digital V8 engine with our own broken steering wheel?
Wow. Are we teaching supercomputers to protect their ego instead of seeking the truth?
It's possible.
That is a terrifying but really fascinating thought that will definitely keep me up tonight. We are not just fighting millions of years of our own biology. We might literally be passing those exact flaws on to the next evolution of intelligence.
It's something to think about.
But as we've learned today, the first step to escaping the trap is recognizing that you are in it. So I will leave you with this final echoing thought from the source material to carry with you. If the greatest prison on earth is certainty, what cell are you sitting in right now?